Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this month's X5 New User Training webinar. My name is Matt McCroan. I'm a Tier 3 Customer Support Specialist here at eMaint, and I will be presenting today's demonstration for you. Some housekeeping items before we begin. The session will be recorded. The phones will be muted through the entirety of the presentations. Type in questions at any time. They will be answered at the end of the presentation. A topic overview. So navigating X5, we're going to go over some of the main entity options, some of the menu options. Entities are going to be what are referred to in Explorer as tables. So assets is one of those. We're going to go through creating an asset and viewing an asset. We're also going to go through the process of creating a contact and viewing the contacts. And then go through the flow of work for work orders, creating a work order for that asset and contact record that we created, assigning the contact to the work order and adding charges from that assignment, going through the closure process of a work order and viewing a work order details. Another topic we're going to discuss is list view options. So creating a filter, creating sorts, adding and moving fields to get your configuration on your list view exactly how you would like it, and clearing the list view. As well as starring important records. So now we will get into the eMaint X5 interface, and I have it open already over here. And as you can see, I am on the work order entity as it stands right now. On the left-hand side, you have your entity menu. This is how I have mine set up. You can have yours set up any way that you would like with any tables and any configuration that you would need. As you can see, I have dashboards, reports, scheduler, work order requests, work orders, scheduled work orders, assets, parts, contacts, and task libraries. This section right here, contacts up to work orders, is going to be where we're going to focus our attention today. If you ever need to adjust anything in this table menu or what you see and what you don't want to see, you can come up to your little avatar icon at the top right, go to profile settings, and this is going to be where you can change what's displayed on the left-hand side over here. This little drop down is going to show you a list of all of the entities available to you. So I'm going to cancel and go back. Just a quick overview of what some of these options are up here. This little question mark icon is going to be your help menu. When you click it, you can type a question in and it'll navigate you to where your question, gear you towards where your question might be answered, whether it's in eMaint University, Customer Success Portal, what have you. And you also have something called the Walk Me feature. So if you click on assets right here, you can click on how to add an asset record. It's going to prompt you on your screen by the via the Walk Me to go to assets. And once you're at assets, you can begin the process of creating your asset record. And since that's where we're going to start today, that is where we will begin. As you can see, I have 24 records, particularly in this site. And I mentioned this site specifically because each site that you designate can have different asset records. So up here where you hover over Bush Campus, that's the site I'm currently in, and you click change site. This is going to be the list of all the sites that I have available. As you can see, I have some parent sites and sub-sites under that parent sites. I'm currently in a sub-site, so it's not within a group, or it is within a group, but it's not the group of all the sites. If I were to click on MA Government and Utilities, it would show me everything in Livingston Campus and Bush Campus. There are a few exceptions. Task library and parts exist across all sites. So it doesn't matter what site you're on. If I click into tasks, it's going to be the same. If I click into parts, it's going to be the same. But assets, work orders, those are all specific to your site. You don't have to utilize the sites feature, but typically people like that feature and want to utilize it. But now that we've discussed that, we could go through the process of creating a work or an asset rather. So all of your tables for the most part, are going to have the same creation process. You're just going to come to the list view, click on new up at the top, and choose your form. You have the ability to have any form, any amount of forms that you want, maybe for different things. As you can see, a facility, forklift, fleet, life safety, what have you. For this example, I'll just create a fleet. So this is going to be a new vehicle I'm adding into the system. When you look at the form, this is how my form is configured. Your form can be configured any way that you want. As you can see, there are some fields that are highlighted in red. That indicates that the field is going to be required. So down at the bottom right, you have a little save option. That will be grayed out and unavailable to you until you populate every required field. You can choose what fields you do and don't want to be required. Again, everything on this form and any of the other forms for the most part are going to be customizable and configurable to meet your needs. New truck 1. So now I'm just going to fill out some of the information so we can begin the process of creating a new asset. So I'm going to type in the asset ID, which is going to be your unique identifier for this particular asset. Let's say that this is a Ford F-150. Asset type is also a required field. And as you notice, once I populate asset type, that's all the required fields on my form. So I can go ahead and save this record if need be. If I blank that out, it grays out again because that's a required field. So I populate it again. I'm able to save this record. If I needed to, I can go through and fill out any of the other pertinent information. Just for the sake of time, I'm just going to make this clean and easy, and I'm going to go ahead and save this record. Now, once you save the record, you can go ahead, this asset's in your system, you can go ahead and create work orders off of it and begin compiling data for this particular asset. Over on the right-hand side over here, it's going to be the same on all of your entities and forms. You're going to have related entities. Related entities are going to be similar to related tables in X4, if you're familiar with that. You have your meters. So you can choose what type of meters you would want. This truck is going to probably have a meter reading since it is a truck. We'll do miles running. Running is going to indicate like an odometer. You just continually add a meter reading to this. And just quickly add that and click add. So what this does for this particular related entity is allow me to build a meter-based scheduled work order off of this asset. Otherwise, I can just build a calendar-based work order off of this, a calendar-based scheduled work order rather off of this particular asset. So this allows me, having this meter type on here allows me to build scheduled work orders for specific meter readings, meaning I add the meter reading to the asset. So let's just say, like I said, it's an odometer. I choose F-150 meter. There's 8,000 miles on this. You have a scheduled work order that's set to trigger every 5,000 miles. This would produce a work order because it meets that 5,000 mile threshold. All of your entities are going to have an audit trail as well. So this is, again, if you're familiar with X4, this is going to be your change log. So any changes that are made to this particular record is going to get tracked in your audit trail. So as you can see, I created the asset at this time, and it was created by me. And if I were to go here and type in available status as available, save that, go back to the audit trail, that is also going to be shown as an update. So it shows you updated, the available status, what it was changed to, and when it was changed. And on the left-hand side over here, it will show you who made the change. And again, another date timestamp of when it was changed. This is going to exist on all of your entities, like I said, as a related entity over here. So that is the basics of creating most form or filling out most forms and creating new records in the system. So the next thing we'll discuss is the creation of a contact. As you can see, like I said, these are the contacts that I have in this particular site. My other sites have multiple other contacts, but this is just who I have here. So if I need to create a new contact in the site, same situation, I'll go up to new. Because I don't have multiple contacts forms, when you hover over new, you don't get the drop-down option. All you get is just a new link. And when you click it, it's going to pull up the singular form that is available to you. Again, completely customizable to whatever you would need. So I'm just going to create a new contact really quick by filling this out. And the reason I like going over assets and contacts, even though, again, it's similar, when you get to the work order stage of things, it's going to allow you to see how everything flows through the asset management process. And again, I'm just going through and filling out any information that is required. One important thing to note, as you could see with this email field, even though I have something populated in it, it's still going to register as a unfilled. Even it's still required because you have to put it in the proper format. Because this is an email type field, you have to put it in the proper format. That's why when I type in .com, that is the proper email format. So it allows it to be saved. Unless it is in that format, it won't allow you to save because it has to be a proper email. So two options for related entities. You can create the record, click save, or during the creation process, you can go ahead and fill out the information in your related entities that you may want or require. Contact events for related entities. This is just going to be for scheduling purposes. If somebody's going to be out of the office from one date to a different date, you can put that here and it would show them as not available for scheduling things. Contact rates is where we're going to focus most of our attention for related entities on the contacts. This is going to allow you to put in somebody's hourly rate. So ordinary and overtime are your two options. So let's just say Matt makes $45 an hour and his overtime rate is 90. By adding those two options, I have the ability to easily charge out information to a work order that will allow labor charges to be calculated more easily on the work order. It's important though that once you click add, you always click the save button. Anytime you do anything on any of the forms, just make sure you click the save button before you navigate away. If you do make a change, so if I just type in 1 and click add and then just try to navigate away, it will prompt you to let you know that there were changes made to the form. But to make sure that you are navigating away and don't want those saves to be changed. In this case, I do not want those saves to be changed. Otherwise, I could continue working on this record, save the changes, and then be able to navigate away. And again, this is going to function the same way on all of your records. So when I go back to contacts, you can see my new contact record is there. And if I go back to assets and I look up my truck, where's my field? There we go. My field got pushed all the way over. So I guess I could go ahead and discuss this since I'm doing it. A little bit of list view management. If you find a field and you need to move it, you can always just go to the column header and wait till you see those little arrows and drag and drop it to where you would need it. That is not the only way to move it. I'll get into that a little bit more when we get into the the list view management side of things. But this shows you what your asset ID is. Now, you will notice on most of your entities that you have a number option and an asset ID, a part number, contact ID, things like that. So the way you should think of this is asset ID is your user-defined unique ID for this particular asset. In this case, new truck one is my unique identifier for that. Now, with all of that, the 225 you see here that's associated is just a system-defined unique identifier. You could click on both of them. They do the same function, but we also recognize that 225 may not mean absolutely anything to you. It's a lot harder to distinguish between that. So that's where you being able to put in your unique identifier comes into play. So now that our asset and our contact has been created, we will go to the work orders. As you can see, I only have one work order in the system as of right now. But again, if I go up to the top right, click new, select new, I have the option for single asset work order and multiple asset work order. A great feature of X5 over X4 is that we have the ability to create work orders for, create a work order for multiple assets. This will allow you to have things like fire extinguisher inspections. You may have 15 different fire extinguishers in your system as assets, and every month those fire extinguishers might need to be inspected to keep up to date and to keep valid. Instead of having 15 different work orders for those 15 different assets, you can have them all in a multiple asset work order and just have one work order assigned to one person or multiple people if you want. But it's all housed in one work order to prevent clutter, to prevent 15 separate work orders. Now, you still do have the option to create those singular work orders for each 15 different events if you would like. But for today's demonstration, we're just going to focus on creating a single asset work order. So similar to all your other forms, you just fill out the pertinent information. You will notice that throughout all of the forms, there are different field types. So you have drop-down field types, which let you choose from a predetermined list. You can add more to that list by clicking the plus sign next to them. You have date and time fields that allow you to select from a calendar specific date and time. You have true false fields. These are what's called a Boolean field in the system. So it just allows you to select true or false. And then you have HTML type fields, which are going to be the field type that allows you to put in pretty much unlimited characters. So if you have something that's extremely long, this is the type of field that you would need to put in here. But for this, I'm again just going to put in the information that is needed. So in this case, asset. I'm going to type in the asset, new truck. It's going to pull in the asset information. With this field type, you do have the ability to map other fields from the asset. So if I had put site, plant, building, floor, location, or department into the asset and had those fields mapped, when I selected Ford F-150, all of those fields would automatically populate from the asset itself, as well as the image. Typically, people associate an image to assets. So you have a picture of the truck. But I didn't add a picture, so it didn't pull over. Otherwise, it would pull down here. And then when you save the record, it would show in the header. Let's see, anything else that I needed? Nope. So I'm going to go ahead and save this record. And now my work order is created for that new asset that we created a little bit earlier. Again, all these related entities can be filled out at the time of creation. I could have gone through and filled out all of those related entities at once and then just saved the record. It would have created the new work order and all the related entity information as well. I just wanted to go through and show you the save beforehand. One thing I do want to note is you'll notice that when I click edit, you have kind of a linear line of options on your form, but they're broken down by groups: requester information, additional information, asset information, work order information, and basic info. But when I save the record and you're looking at the display view, the record details, you could see that they're just displayed a little bit differently. It's not all in one line. So this is how it's going to be displayed. You can add any groups that you want, remove any groups that you want in our form design. Again, these forms are completely configurable to show you whatever information that you want, or if you see stuff that you don't want, can be removed. All right, so for this, I'm going to add an assignment. So I will select the new context that we created from today until, let's just choose tomorrow, and click add. Once I click add, again, remember to click the save button. And now that new user that we created is assigned to this particular work order. If I needed to add more people, I could choose from the list and add more people if I wanted to. For this, I'm just going to use the one assignment, but you can assign as many people as you want to a work order. When you go through the process of, when Matt goes through the process and he's done all of the work, made sure everything's done, he can go into labor charges and begin the process of creating a labor charge. So I'll choose the user we created. We'll choose ordinary. As you can see, once I select ordinary, it will auto-populate with the rate that we put in. If I were to switch that to overtime, it changes to that. So this is just ordinary time. And let's just say it took 2.5 hours. Required. The comments aren't required on this. You can make them required. Rate type can be defaulted to ordinary if you would like, so you don't have to make the selection before it automatically populates, but that's completely up to you. So once I click that, I'll click add. All costs will be calculated after saving the record. That's going to indicate that just because you click add, you're still seeing total cost as blank because I haven't saved the record. Once I save the record, it's going to take the 2.5 hours times the $45 an hour and give you the total cost for this particular user, and that this user did on this particular work order. Just to go over briefly some of these other fields over here, or these other related entities rather. You have labor requirements. So if I know that the user assigned to this should only take them 3 hours to do the work, I can select their record, put 3 hours, and that way you can report off of, okay, this should have taken 3 hours, but it took 5 hours. Why did it take 5 hours? You can go, it's more for auditing purposes to make sure, hold people a little bit more accountable. So to say, you have the ability to make miscellaneous charges and parts charges. So if you utilize any parts to fit on this work order to fix this truck, what have you, you would be able to automatically, you could choose the part that you used for this and pull from the on hand of the parts section. And that would also calculate the same way as labor requirements. So if I chose two of a certain part at 15, the part costs $15, it would charge out 2 parts from the parts entity for that item, and your total cost would be $30 because it takes 2 times 15 and calculates based off of that. But again, it automatically, by charging out, it automatically pulls from the on hand of that record. Parts requirements is going to be similar to labor requirements. So say this truck has a list of parts that you would typically need to fix the truck. You would be able to have that associated to the scheduled work order or associated to the asset. So when the asset's chosen, you could have this automatically populate. And procedures is going to be if you have a task that you create and that task has a list of steps to accomplish the goal of this work order, you can have that associated to the work order as well. Typically, these are assigned at the scheduled work orders level, which we'll talk about if we have a little bit of time at the end, which I believe we will. But this will be pulled over via scheduled work orders most of the time. And that is the creation of a work order. So now that we've assigned somebody, the person has done the work and the labor has been charged out, they can go through and close the work order out. Alternatively, sometimes we have people that do not want the technician or the mechanic or whoever's doing the work order to be able to physically close the work order. They can list the job status, so to say, as waiting for approval. So you could have a manager notified that, hey, this work order has been listed as waiting on approval. They need Andrew. You can have a manager get a notification, like I said, via a workflow, and they would be able to come through, confirm that the work has been completed, and begin the closure process. All of this can be determined at a roles level and what access levels certain people have. So if you don't want your technicians or mechanics to have the ability to close work orders, but they can do everything out, you can remove that ability from them. But the closure process would be the same for them as it would for a manager. If they have the access to it, you would just go up to actions and go to close. Once you click close, you'll have a pop-up up here. This pop-up is configurable to an extent. So you see downtime is required on mine. He took 2.5 hours to fix this. So this asset was down for 2.5 hours. That can be auto-populated if you want. It doesn't have to be there. If there's any other comments that are required for this, you can do it. Otherwise, you can close the work order, and you'll notice that the work order status goes from open to closed. This work order is officially closed by system standards. All right, another way you can create work orders in the system is via work order requests. So a work order request is going to be, you have a request user that has the ability to just put in a work order request, and you don't want that person to have the ability to just go in and create a work order as needed. You want those work orders to be approved beforehand, because technician A may be on the floor, see a forklift that has a flat tire. He walked past it, puts in a work request for that flat tire to be fixed, so somebody can go in and approve it and assign the proper person to that. Now, 15 minutes later, technician B walks by, sees the same thing, puts in a work request for the exact same thing. This allows your request manager, your work order manager, supervisor, whoever's doing this, to be able to see, okay, I have 2 requests for the exact same thing. I'm going to reject one of those requests and approve another one. That's one use case for work order requests. I'll just create one really quick. Again, this is going to be similar process as creating everything else. I'm just going to create one so I can show you. They do have the ability to take a picture directly from their phone or directly upload it to the computer of the broken asset. And I'm not going to populate the asset because I'm just going to show you, use this to show you the approval and rejection process. So you'll have a list view. You'll see that the status is open. Any status of open means it's waiting for approval or rejection. You can either do it directly from the list view by clicking this little menu option over here, and you can approve or reject, or you can direct, if you want to, you can go into the record and approve or reject it via actions at the top right. For this instance, I'm going to reject this. I'm not going to continue with the rejection, but I will just do this so I could show you the prompt that it comes when you reject it. It will come up with this pop-up. I could say this is a duplicate request already being handled by another technician. And once I click reject, whoever's in the email on the work order request itself will get notified, hey, your work order request was rejected. This is why. It'll have the reason for that. It's an email that's sent. Once you approve it, you can approve it into a single asset work order or a multi-asset work order. And once it's approved, you will get taken to the work order screen, the creation screen for a work order. At this point, you would, if you have assets required, you would have to select your asset. I had a forklift. We could choose any asset for this just to populate it. Problem type. And we can save this. We can assign anybody to it, similar to the creation process of a work order before. This is just an added step of approval. Now this work order has been created. The assignment would get notified that this work order has been assigned to them. And when you navigate back to the list view, the status goes from open to approved, and it shows you all the information from that. All right, the last form of work order creation is going to be scheduled work orders. So to create a scheduled work order, again, you're going to go up to new, but it's going to be a little bit different. I mentioned before that your forms are pretty configurable. The one, I would say, exception is going to be your scheduled work orders. These forms, for the most part, aren't as configurable. And sometimes aren't configurable at all. From here, you have the ability to create a preventative maintenance schedule. So that's going to be every month you want this truck serviced. This will push out a work order every month. Inspection rounds, this is going to be something like I mentioned before with the fire extinguisher. You have multiple fire extinguishers you want to associate to a scheduled work order. This is where you would do that. And external trigger is going to be if you utilize any of our Fluke Connect tools, vibration sensors. Once it hits a certain threshold on the vibration sensor, you can have it push out a work order. But we're going to focus on the main type today, and that's going to be preventative maintenance. This is going to be an example of something that isn't super configurable as far as forms go, and that's going to be your triggers. Triggers are going to be based on calendar frequency. I can add a calendar frequency. So let's just do every 1 month. You can see you have days, months, and weeks. If you needed a yearly, you would just do 12 months. In this case, we're just going to do 1. You have when to trigger a work order. That's going to be used a fixed frequency. So what that indicates is every month, no matter what, this is going to push out a work order. So if I have it set to trigger tomorrow, it'll push out a work order tomorrow, and then on the 16th of every month going forward. If I select after previous work order is closed, if I select tomorrow for this particular work order, scheduled work order to produce, it'll produce tomorrow, but the next scheduled work order date will not get populated until that work order that's produced tomorrow is closed. So say the work order gets produced tomorrow, tomorrow's Thursday, but you don't have anybody work on it till next Tuesday. They work on it Tuesday, complete it, close it out. It would be 1 month from next Tuesday that the next work order would get produced. And again, if you're familiar with X4, this is the difference between static and shadow. This is static, this is shadow. We just changed the terminology so it's a little bit more intuitive. All right, for this, I'm just going to select our truck. We'll type last performed on. That's going to indicate when it's going to produce next. And because I added a meter to this Ford F-150 when we created it, as you remember, I can search for that meter, and I would be able to create a meter-based PM. Like I said, the thresholds every 5,000 miles I want this to produce. The last work order reading was 0. I would be able to create a meter-based PM off of this. But for the sake of this, I'm just going to do calendar-based. You'll notice I have everything filled out here, but I am unable to save the record. That indicates that there's still something that needs to be populated on part of the form. Scheduled work orders is set up a little bit differently. As you can see, we have different tabs up here. All of these tabs are pertinent to the scheduled work order. All you did on this tab was fill out the frequency, basically. Select the asset, fill out the frequency. When we go to details, you can kind of dig into a little more what this is supposed to be for. I can look from a pre-existing list of tasks. I can select the task that's associated already. So motor bearing replacement task. Again, this is going to be where you could have a series of steps and task procedures that get pulled to the scheduled work order. And once the scheduled work order gets produced into a work order, it pulls for the work order, and your technician or whoever's assigned would then be able to go through and follow those steps and check pass, fail, what have you. I can populate any of the other information. If I need to have this show up on specific calendars, I can do that here. If you need to nest PMs, you can nest PMs there. Generate projections just allows, as you can see up here, projection preview is going to show you when this is going to produce. 16th of March, 16th of April, 16th of May, so forth. I'm going to close the preview. And you can choose how long you want to see the projection for. And the last option is going to be work order template. As you can see, this is just pretty much a copy of the work order form. If you need everything on this form filled out when this PM or this scheduled work order produces a new work order, you can fill this out. You can leave it blank if you want and want the information filled out at the time of assignment. You can assign work orders to people at this level if you want. You can put the labor requirements, parts requirements if need be, and anything else. Again, you're looking at my list of related entities. If you have related entities that you've created or that are in the system already that you don't see here, these can be added. But I want to go ahead and save this. So this scheduled work order has now been created and will start producing this work order every 30 days on a static basis. All right, so one of the last things we will get into is going to be list view configuration. Because I have the most records for this in parts, I'm going to go to parts, and we can discuss the configurability of this. As you can see, every column header has a typable box for the most part. You do have something like image. You can't really search for a picture, so that's why that is grayed out. But if you wanted to see everything with the word bearing in it, you can just type that in. Your operator is always going to default to contains, and you're going to see every work or every item with the description bearing in it. If you wanted to get more specific, you can change the operator by clicking the left-hand side over there on the column header and change the operator. Now, some of the operators are going to be different depending on field types. Part number, that's going to be the same, but this is a true false field. So you can only filter for is true or is false. You don't need those operators over there. If it's a date field, it's going to come up with a calendar, so you can filter for a specific date, as opposed to being able to free type. If you typically utilize a filter, you can go ahead and save that filter. Bearings, for example, that way you can, instead of typing it in every time, if you have a more comprehensive filter that's kind of broken down a little bit more, you can save that as well. Shared, this checkbox indicates that everybody in your system would be able to utilize this filter. If you don't click that, only the person that created it would be able to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. If it'll save, there we go. And if I clear this filter, you can see I'm right back to just your standard lookup. I'll go to the drop down here and I can just easily click bearings and it shows bearings. And if I just click the X again, it allows me to clear that filter. Now, if you see that your list view doesn't have the fields that you may want or require on it, you can click the little gearbox right here and then click View Configuration. View Configuration is going to allow you to join other tables in and information from those tables via this. So if you need part supplier, part location, a field from those particular entities, you would be able to join that in there. Otherwise, if you click select a field under grid, these are all of the fields that are available to you that may not be on your list view as well. So let's say comment, for example. As you can see, it gets moved to the end. And I mentioned before, you can drag and drop on the actual list view to move these around. Otherwise, you can just come to this configuration and slide them up and down to wherever you would need. So if I want comment second, or let's just do down here. If I see a field I don't need, so unit of measure I don't need, I can remove. And I showed you can drag and drop over there. You can also use these arrows icons over here to move stuff up and down. Label is just going to indicate what's going to show in your list view. So stock item, if that's the field name and that's the description on the form, but if you wanted it to show something else on the list view, you would be able to do that. And I showed you on the list view how you can easily filter from the column headers. You can also do it from configuration here. So you can go to filter by, create rule. Let's just say, let's just use the same description, contains bearing. And I can add different levels and filter down even more if I need to. And order by is going to be how you sort, how your table is going to be sorted. And once you're done with that, you just click apply changes and this will apply those changes to your list view. Now, I forgot to mention earlier, you can also just click the column header to add a sort to the field. So if you have something that you want sorted, you can add it here. And if you want to clear that sort, you can come here, click the X button in configuration and click apply. And that way you don't have any sorts on your table. Over here, you have the ability to change your list view look. So you can have table or cards. Card is just going to change it a little bit so you can see the items or the assets and what have you in a different view. As you can see, we have sprocket, then description, then some of the information below it. If there were images applied to these, you would also see the image. This allows for a more condensed look at things. So as you can see, when I click tables, you're looking at just one line of information as opposed to, as it says, a card list of information. Most people utilize table more than anything, but the card is definitely beneficial. Some of the options up at the top left, you have collapse menu. This just collapses your menu to have a bigger screen for your list view or your detail view of your records. When you hover over it, it shows you the list of items. And you have the tree explorer option. So what the Explorer allows you to do is kind of filter again to an extent. So let's just say I want to see all stock items in this tree. You can see that 1,630 of my items are not stock and 89 are. If I click the drop down, it's going to show me a list of all of the stock items. If I click the drop down here, it's going to show me a list of all of the, all the items that aren't stock, and this is showing me all the items that are stock. Let me go to assets for this. This is a little bit better example. So if I go by asset type, apply, you can see I can break it down just by asset type to see everything a little bit easier in a tree format of asset type. So all of my facility assets, fleet assets, healthcare assets, and vehicle assets. You can also add other filters to this. So facility, and it says empty because the subtypes for asset, all of these, I thought I had subtypes, but you can get the general idea of this. If there were multiple subtypes for healthcare, for example, all of those would show, and it would show them broken down a little bit more in that manner. All right, the last thing I'm going to talk about is just a brief, I mentioned you have the ability to create different sites here, and the information is kind of specific to those sites with the exception of tasks and parts. The way you would add those sites is by clicking on your avatar icon here and going to account settings and navigating down to sites. If you need to add a new one, you would just click all. Just keep in mind, if you do have parent sites and subsites, this would you would click the plus sign under there. Once you click the plus sign, it will prompt you to name the site, label it, say what time zone it is, what currency they use, and what language that they prefer. So if you have a subsite of Olive Branch campus that is in England, they could use the euro instead of the US dollar. But this allows you to have multiple different sites with multiple different data sets within one total site. All right, so that is going to conclude today's demonstration. If anybody came in late, this happens every first and third Wednesday of the month. It rotates between myself and one of my colleagues. So if you did miss it, don't worry. You can join it at a later date. Otherwise, I have been recording this session and it will be uploaded onto eMaint University. But at this point, we are going to get into any questions pertaining any of the information that we went over today. I do ask that you keep the questions related to the information that we discussed. If you have any questions that fall outside of the realm of what we discussed today, please feel free to reach out to our support team and they'll be happy to answer those questions.